She announced, "I've been injecting you with testosterone blockers in your sleep for feminism." I calmly said, "Interesting." Then I had my hair tested, filed attempted poisoning charges, and called the FBI. The SWAT team raid during her gender studies presentation. This is going to sound completely unbelievable. If I hadn't lived through it, I'd be the first one calling bullshit. But every word is true, and I've got the court documents to prove it. I, 34M, met Diane, 32F, at a fundraiser for a local political candidate 3 years ago. I'm a pharmaceutical patent attorney. She was getting her PhD in gender studies at the university where the event was held. We hit it off immediately, despite our different backgrounds. She was brilliant, passionate, articulate, everything I thought I wanted in a partner. Our relationship progressed quickly. Within 6 months, we were living together in my condo near downtown Boston. Things were good. Until they weren't. Looking back, there were warning signs I completely missed. The casual comments about how men are inherently prone to aggression due to hormonal influence. The not-so-subtle suggestions that I'd be more evolved if I were less stereotypically masculine. Her increasing involvement with a fringe academic group that published papers with titles like Chemical Solutions to Patriarchal Biology. But I was blind to it all. Classic case of love making you stupid. About a year into our relationship, I started experiencing strange symptoms. Fatigue, brain fog, decreased muscle mass despite maintaining my workout routine, low libido, mood swings. I initially chalked it up to stress. I was working on a major case involving patent infringement for a blockbuster drug, putting in 70-hour weeks. When the symptoms persisted, I saw my doctor. Blood tests showed my testosterone levels were abnormally low for my age. He suggested testosterone replacement therapy, but wanted to investigate why my levels had plummeted before starting treatment. Have you been exposed to any endocrine-disrupting chemicals? Changed your diet drastically? Started any new medications? He asked. None of the above. He ordered more tests, but nothing conclusive came back. I started the therapy, but oddly, my levels weren't responding as expected. It was like something was actively counteracting the treatment. Meanwhile, Diane had been acting strange. She seemed almost gleeful about my condition. She'd make comments like, "You're much nicer when you're not so amped up on testosterone," or "I love that you're getting in touch with your feminine side." I brushed these off as her academic perspective bleeding into our personal life. That was my first mistake. The revelation came during what was supposed to be a romantic dinner at our place. Diane had cooked, opened a bottle of wine, even lit candles. As we finished the meal, she seemed almost giddy. "I have something important to tell you," she said, refilling my wine glass. "Something exciting." I assumed she'd gotten news about her dissertation or landed a teaching position. Instead, what came out of her mouth changed everything. "I've been working on an independent research project," she began, her eyes bright with what I now recognize as fanaticism, examining the effects of reduced testosterone on behavioral patterns in cisgender males. I nodded, still clueless. "That sounds interesting. How's the data collection going?" She smiled. "Exceptionally well. I've been documenting the results for nearly 8 months now." Something in her tone made my skin crawl. 8 months? Have you started trials already?" "You could say that." She reached for my hand across the table. "You're my subject, Daniel. I've been injecting you with testosterone blockers while you sleep. For feminism, I felt like I'd been physically struck." "You've been what?" My voice rose with each word, hands shaking with a combination of rage and shock. "Administering a compound that blocks testosterone production and uptake. Just a small dose, 3 times a week. The changes have been remarkable. Your aggression levels are down 60%. You've displayed increased empathy. You're less domineering in conversations. It's working exactly as theorized." She said this as casually as if telling me she'd switched our coffee brand. She tried to touch my arm and I jerked away so violently I knocked over my wine glass. That's assault," I managed to say, my mind reeling. "You've been drugging me, without consent, for an unauthorized human experiment?" She waved dismissively. "It's for a greater purpose. My dissertation committee doesn't know the specific methodology, of course, but when they see the results, you're using me as an unwitting test subject for your dissertation?" I stood up so quickly, my chair fell backward. That's not just assault, Diane. That's criminal. It's a violation of every medical ethics code in existence. Her expression hardened. This is why I had to do it without telling you. Men never understand the importance of dismantling their own toxic biology. The compound is completely safe. I synthesized it myself using a formula developed by Dr. Harriman. Who the hell is Dr. Harriman? My faculty advisor. Her work on chemical gender equalizers is groundbreaking, if underappreciated due to patriarchal scientific gatekeeping. I felt sick, literally and figuratively. Where are these drugs? Where have you been keeping them? In my secure lab storage, obviously. I'm not careless. She seemed offended that I'd question her scientific rigor while ignoring the massive ethical breach. That's when my legal training kicked in. I recognized that my next actions would be crucial. I needed to get out, get safe, and get evidence before she could cover her tracks. I need some air, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. I walked out of the dining room, grabbed my keys and wallet, and left. I checked into a hotel downtown, my mind spinning with shock, betrayal, and growing rage. That night, I made a plan. First step, evidence collection. I needed proof of what she'd done. I contacted a forensic toxicologist the next morning, explaining that I suspected someone had been administering drugs to me without my knowledge. He recommended a hair test, which could detect substances I'd been exposed to over the past several months. The particular testosterone blockers used leave distinctive markers in hair keratin, making them ideal for this type of testing. Plus, the regular pattern of dosing would create a clear timeline in the hair sample. While waiting for the hair test results, I consulted 3 colleagues, a criminal defense attorney, a medical ethics expert, and a friend at the FDA. All were appropriately horrified by my situation. After consulting my attorney, I returned to the condo with a police escort to collect my essential belongings, a standard procedure in domestic cases. While there, I noticed a locked case in Diane's office closet. I pointed it out to the officers, explaining my suspicions. They documented it and included it in the application for a search warrant, which was executed the following day. The search revealed vials, syringes, and a detailed log of treatments and observed effects dating back 8 months. She had meticulously documented everything precisely because she viewed it as legitimate research and intended to publish it with identifying details removed once she had proven her hypothesis. The hair test results came back positive for 2 substances: spironolactone, a testosterone blocker commonly prescribed for certain medical conditions, and a novel compound that the lab initially could only identify as an unusual androgen receptor antagonist. After consulting with pharmaceutical databases and specialists, which I had access to through my professional network, they matched it to an experimental drug called XR14 that had been rejected during early trials due to safety concerns. It was never approved for human use. Further investigation revealed that Dr. Harriman had previously worked at Meridian Pharmaceuticals before entering academia. She had maintained connections with former colleagues and had convinced a lab technician to provide samples of failed drug candidates by claiming she was conducting preliminary animal studies. The technician is now facing charges of his own. Even more disturbing, we discovered that Diane wasn't Dr. Harriman's first student to engage in this type of research. 2 other graduate students had been conducting similar unauthorized experiments on their partners. In one case, the partner had actually consented after being gradually indoctrinated into their radical views, a glimpse into what Diane had likely planned for me once her initial experiment yielded results. Armed with this evidence, I filed charges: assault and battery, poisoning, practicing medicine without a license, and violation of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. Because the experimental drug XR14 had been illegally imported from a research lab in Switzerland, crossing international borders, and because the university received over $50 million in federal research grants annually, the case fell under FBI jurisdiction. The FDA's Office of Criminal Investigations became involved specifically because of the use of an unapproved investigational drug outside of authorized clinical trials, which is directly under their enforcement authority. I hadn't spoken to Diane during this time. She'd been calling and texting incessantly, alternating between concern, anger, and attempts to justify her actions as necessary for important research. I documented everything but didn't respond. The investigation proceeded over the next 2 months, building an airtight case. The initial arrest was based on the known substances, while the investigation into the experimental drug and the wider conspiracy continued. Diane was scheduled to present her preliminary findings at a departmental symposium titled Chemical Interventions in Masculine Behavioral Modification, a Case Study. She'd actually sent me an invitation, apparently believing I'd either forgiven her or accepted her warped rationalization. The arrest team consisted primarily of FBI agents and local police, with 2 hazardous materials specialists accompanying them due to concerns about unknown substances. While not a full tactical team, they did come prepared with protective equipment, given the unknown nature of the chemicals involved. They timed the arrest for the symposium specifically because it was a controlled environment with minimal risk to bystanders compared to a lab setting. The footage shows Diane at the podium. A PowerPoint slide behind her with a graph labeled Subject D's Testosterone Levels, 8-month decline. As officers stream in, her expression shifts from confusion to disbelief to outrage. "What is the meaning of this interruption?" she demands, apparently believing it's some kind of academic protest. When the lead agent announces she's under arrest and begins listing the charges, her face goes completely blank. As they handcuff her, she looks directly at the camera and says, "This is exactly the kind of aggressive institutional response that proves my research is necessary. The patriarchy fears chemical equalizers because they threaten male biological dominance." They led her out past stunned faculty and students, some of whom were already frantically Googling the charges, putting together what her case study actually involved. The aftermath was a legal and academic earthquake. Dr. Harriman was immediately placed on administrative leave while the tenure revocation process began. Diane was suspended from the PhD program pending investigation, with formal expulsion coming after an emergency meeting of the ethics committee. The university initially tried to distance itself from Diane's actions, claiming she had acted entirely outside institutional knowledge. However, when my legal team discovered emails showing that another graduate student had previously reported concerns about Dr. Harriman's private research projects to the department chair, who had dismissed them without investigation, their position became untenable. Facing potential punitive damages for negligent oversight, their insurer pushed for settlement. As for Diane, she took a plea deal rather than face a public trial. She's currently serving a 4-year sentence in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. She's permanently banned from working in any research capacity or educational institution. I'm still dealing with the physical aftermath. My endocrinologist explained that the type of testosterone suppression I'd experienced would take 12 to 18 months to fully reverse, with some effects potentially being permanent. The combination of spironolactone and the experimental compound had not only blocked testosterone reception, but had also suppressed my body's natural production, essentially creating a temporary state of chemical castration. 6 months after stopping the exposure, I'm showing significant improvement, though my doctor projects a full hormonal rebalancing will take at least another year. The psychological impact has been harder to quantify. How do you trust again after something like this? How do you not question every drink, every meal, every person who has access to you when you're vulnerable? I've moved to a new condo in a secure building. I installed cameras everywhere. I bought a small safe for my bedroom where I lock up my drinks before going to sleep. It's paranoid, I know, but necessary for my peace of mind. I've also become an advocate for awareness about this type of abuse. It's more common than you might think, though usually not with such ideological motivations. My attorney says they've seen cases involving everything from partners administering psychiatric medications to control behavior, to performance-enhancing drugs given to teenage athletes by parents, to weight loss drugs slipped to spouses. The most chilling part of all this? Until that dinner, I had no idea. I trusted Diane completely. If she hadn't decided to reveal her research to me, apparently believing I'd be impressed or supportive once I understood her important work, she might have continued experimenting on me indefinitely. So if you've made it this far, take this away. If something feels off with your health, dig deeper. Document everything. And remember that abuse and control can wear many disguises, including the mask of academic research. Update: 6 months later, my health continues to improve, though the road to recovery is longer than initially hoped. I'm working with a therapist specializing in intimate partner abuse, which has been tremendously helpful. Diane's case has sparked a nationwide conversation about academic oversight and ethics in research. 3 universities have completely overhauled their IRB protocols as a direct result, implementing new safeguards specifically designed to detect shadow research conducted outside official channels. I received a settlement from the university, which I've used to establish a foundation for victims of similar abuse. We're working on improving detection protocols in emergency rooms and educating medical professionals about this emerging form of domestic abuse. And for those wondering, yes, I'm dating again slowly and cautiously. My current partner is a forensic accountant who finds my security measures perfectly reasonable. She brings her own sealed water bottle to restaurants too, so we're well matched in our informed paranoia. Life goes on, differently, but definitively forward. Final note: if you suspect someone is administering substances without your knowledge, get tested immediately. Hair tests can detect exposure from months ago, long after blood or urine tests would come up clean. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong with your body or mind,